Hi, I'm Hobie One. This is Red Chair Reading. I'm in Baja California del Sur at a place called La Ventana, one of the windiest places in the world. I'm trying to get my reading on before it becomes a hurricane. We're reading the Black Book of Secrets by F.E. Higgins, chapter 43, 44, 45, and 46. These are very short little chapters. All I do is read aloud, so thank you for joining me. Chapter 43, fragment from the Memoirs of Ludlow Fitch. Let's go. Zaluki was croaking loudly in her tank when we emerged, quite breathless, into the upper cave. Joe took her out and stroked her. Would you like to hold her? Of course. But will she allow it? Let's find out. So I held out my quivering hand and Joe placed her gently on my palm. She was as light as a feather. I had never noticed before how delicate she was. Her back was mottled with bright red and yellow, and her long, slender legs were the green of young shoots in the spring, while her underbelly was white with pale blue patches. She trusts you, he said simply. I laughed. I had never thought to hold such a beautiful creature in my life. He took her back and carefully placed her in the drawstring bag. As he did so, a piece of paper, the one Perigo had given him in the shop, fluttered from under his cloak and landed on the floor. What's this? I asked. Read it, he said, and there was a strange look in his eye. I held it up to the dim light, and if I had thought I could be surprised no more, then I was to be proved wrong. What I saw and read finally gave me the answer to the ultimate question. You clever devil, I said. So that's how you did it. It wasn't Horatio's pie at all. I did it? He queried, and he looked at me with the mild irritation. Are you sure? No, you're right, I exclaimed as I realized what he meant. You didn't. It's like you said. Jeremiah brought it on himself. And then I realized something else, something far more terrible. Oh, my Lord, I whispered. Oh, my Lord. What is it, Ludlow? How did you know Zaluki trusted me? I asked slowly. Joe shrugged. Fortuna favit fortibus. Fortune favors the brave. My hands were shaking as I gave him back the paper. Please don't take any more chances, I said. At least not with me. Ah, Ludlow, he said, grinning. I'm disappointed in you. What is life if not a gamble? That's the end of chapter 43. Let's move on to chapter 44. Page torn from amphibians of the southern hemisphere. Returned to Joe by Perigo and then given to Ludlow in the cave. Philobates tricolor. Must be about the tree frog. This colorful tree frog is a member of the poison dart frog family, Diondrabatidae, and a native of the rainforests of South America. When the creature is under stress from a predator, for example, it secretes a powerful poison through special pores on its back. This poison causes the skin to burn and blister and seeps into the bloodstream, bringing about rapid muscle and respiratory paralysis and leading inevitably to death. The native Indians of the area tip their arrows with the poison, hence the name poison dart. There is no known cure. If you see one of these frogs, unless you two are well acquainted, it is advisable not to touch it. Oh, that's the end of chapter 43. I said they were going to be short. Oh, excuse me. If this is interesting to you, please boop the like button. You'll help the video spread to other people. Thank you very much. Okay, chapter 45, fragment from the Memoirs of Ludlow Fitch. Outside, it was impossible to see where we had emerged. Even though we stood no more than a few feet away from the entrance, I shielded my eyes from the glare of the snow and looked at Joe. Where to now? I think we shall go to the city, he said. There are many things who might benefit from our services. Do we have to? I had no desire as yet to return to that despicable place. We are masters of our own destiny, Ludlow, said Joe. We can go wherever we choose. Then let us leave the city for another day. Well, as you wish. Though you cannot avoid it forever, Joe turned in the other direction and began to walk. "Wait," I said. "Just answer me one more question." "Of course." "What is so important about the wooden leg?" "It'll come in useful one day, Ludlow." "Is it something to do with your limp?" "That's two questions." "Please," I begged, but to no avail. Joe looked at me with the hint of a smile and a twinkle in his eye. A man must be allowed at least one secret, Ludlow, don't you think? That's the end of chapter 45. Let's do chapter 46. Loose ends. Horatio Cleaver never did tell anyone about the poisoned pie. In fact, when he went back to collect it, he was both surprised and relieved to see that it had not been touched apart from a piece of crust that had been broken off, by the looks of it, spat out onto the plate. He concluded then, with a clear conscience, that Dr. Molderd's diagnosis had been right. As for Jeremiah, he was buried in Pagus Parvis Cemetery in a grave that was a full 9 feet deep. Obadiah had dug with enthusiasm and was hard to contain. That was hard to contain. You might have thought that the funeral would have been sparsely attended, but the opposite was true. It seemed that everyone for miles around came to see Ratchet's interment. I would say that should be internment, but it says interment. And, of course, there was little weeping. Indeed, there was a general air of hilarity and jollity. And at the gathering afterward, drink flowed freely and laughter rocked the walls of the pickled trout. Jeremiah's grave was robbed only a matter of days after he was buried. The culprits were a little disconcerted by those extra 3 feet, but dug them nonetheless. Upon payment to each of 20 shillings and 6 pence, Jeremiah ended up on a cold slab in an anatomy school in the city. When the inquisitive surgeon cut into his chest, he found a most odd thing. Jeremiah's heart was so small, it could fit into a jam pot. After hearing of its size, many eminent physicians and surgeons were curious as to how such a small organ could support the life of such a huge man. Some even wondered whether the ancients had been right all along to attribute the source of life to the liver. It is thought that Jeremiah's heart set back medical progress by at least a decade. Jeremiah had no family and no will, so it was decided that Ratchet's tenants could claim ownership of their properties. Whether this was lawful or not was hardly a consideration. Sometimes there are advantages to being isolated from the outside world. As for Polly, with Jeremiah dead and Joe and Ludlow gone, there was little left for her in Pagus Parvis. So a few days later she hitched a ride on Perigo's trap and took off to the city, still believing it couldn't possibly be as bad as Ludlow made out. What a cool little book. Thank you for joining me. I'll catch you again in the next installment for a note from F.E. Higgins and then the addendum. Thank you for joining me. Catch you soon. Bye.